Hey there, Lunacy community. It's Jeff Ado here. Much love to all of you. Thanks for tuning in. Just wanted to start this one off with a quick disclaimer / trigger warning. I've never had a conversation like this with anybody. I don't know anybody that's had a conversation like this with anybody. It's a very unique conversation. I think it's an extremely important conversation in terms of how we create justice moving forward. The subject of this podcast is restorative justice, but it really focuses on the relationship between two people, a man and a woman, who knew each other years ago. And I'm going to tell you right now, part of the restorative part of it involves sexual assault. If that's upsetting to you or it's going to trigger you, just skip this one. I would also say it's really easy to judge people in these situations, particularly the assailant. I really invite you to really listen to what these two people have to say and how this situation resolved and where this man was at this time in his life when the incident happened and who he's grown into since then. I really want to encourage you to look at this from a perspective of that there's hope in the world for men who commit crimes. There is transformation. There is healing from these kinds of incidents. And it's rarely explored and talked about because it's just so gnarly, frankly. So I really want to encourage all of you to listen to this podcast through the lens of what is possible for the future. And I also really want to encourage you to listen for the healing that is available to those who have the courage to seek it out and demand restoration. I also want you to listen to the healing that is available when one is willing to make amends for the crimes that they have committed in their life. When one is willing to really learn the lessons of what their behavior has done to other people and really own that. None of this is easy to talk about, but it doesn't get talked about enough. So I really invite you to listen with an open mind and an open heart. Much love. Enjoy the show. I am Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. I got two guests today, everybody. All right. Not just one guest, two guests. It's a double guest situation. Very exciting on Lunacy. With me today are Stefan Thomas, a very good friend of mine from Sacred Sons, who I did the Primal Presence experience with. He is an attorney, a community builder, and a restorative justice practitioner. And also Alexandria Ward, who is a broker owner of Ford Realty in Chicago, and herself also really a model of health and ways of relating to people in the world. I'm really excited to have you both on the program. Welcome to Lunacy.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, Jeff. It's been a long time coming. And I'm happy to be here.
Lots of talking, lots of planning. So just to kind of set the groundwork for people, today we're going to be talking about restorative justice, what that means, how it works, how it's worked in your relationship, the history of your relationship, and really looking at this restorative justice, how it applies not just to individual people, but also how can it be applied to courts and the criminal justice system in this country, and how it's really a model of justice moving forward. So really excited to share that with the peoples and get into it. So Stefan, maybe you could just give us sort of like a primer, a little intro on how you and Zan know each other and kind of how this whole process happened for you.
Yeah, Zan is the only person I've experienced love at first sight. Like I met her driving down the street on the south side of Chicago. I was 15 years old. I didn't have a license, but I was driving a car anyway. That's another story for another time. And I saw this like beautiful girl who was walking with some friends that I knew, and I like skirt hit the brakes, And I don't know if I hopped out the car. Hopefully, if I did, I don't know.
You did.
Um, I hopped out the car and I probably said some really corny line or something. Yo, baby, yo. I don't know what it was, but or it was something goofy. But I remember getting her phone number. I remember exactly what she was wearing. She had on like these little blue jean shorts and this like white top, and she had gold braces at the time to like glimmered in the sunshine. And I was so smitten from like that point forward. Um, and it was really, really, truly like my first real deep love
Hmm.
um, was Zan. That's how
Beautiful.
I
And
remember Zan. I don't remember what do you remember?
A guy, crazy guy driving and stopping and talking to me. And then I remember you got my number, but then we didn't talk. I went away for a whole summer, and then we were connected when I got back. You called my house
Yeah.
phone. I remember that, and then
hmm.
that was the
This,
beginning of it.
this is when you had to call someone's house phone, right? And talk to like their mama and then their sister. You didn't know who was
Your
on the other
daddy.
line.
hmm
You know what I mean? To like get to the person. But I still remember her phone number 7773 7. Well, I don't want to say it, but
Yeah, don't
I
say
still
it.
Well,
remember
I
Don't
don't
say
have it
it.
anymore, but yeah, look.
Otherwise, that
I
person's
still
going to get big
remember that
calls.
number.
Yeah.
I still remember that phone number.
That's
I called it
awesome.
so many times, you know.
Yeah.
The number
Um,
haunts you, right?
it does. I see 734. That's like my angel number. You know, I see it all the
All the
time,
time.
like
Hmm.
everywhere. I send Zan pictures all the time. 734. It just like pops up regularly on the
Hundreds of
microwave, in the
times.
car. Like it's just everywhere in my life. And so, um, yeah, and our at the time too when we met, I was also a member of one of Chicago's largest street gangs, the Black P Stone Nation. I was gang banging, I was selling dope, really being something that wasn't really in alignment with who I was. But I was trying this identity of, my mom's black, excuse me, mom's white, my dad's black, and I was searching for identity. My dad was gone. I didn't have a father in the house. My mom worked all the time. I was free to do whatever I wanted to do. And so I got into a ton of trouble. And Zan was like, I don't know how many times that I was with Zan when some people got shot. You know what I mean? Or some people got locked up. But because I was with her and spent so much time with her, it just really kept me grounded in a season of life where I really wasn't.
Hmm. Amazing. So when you say that, do you mean that like she was with you when people were getting arrested, or you were with her instead of getting arrested?
I was with her instead of
He
that.
was with
I
me.
mean,
Ah,
yeah,
good job, Zan.
would much
Thanks.
rather hang out with Zan and be out with some with the
Yeah,
gangsters on the block. You know what I
We
mean?
spent a lot of time together.
Um,
It's like we grew up together, but we were dating. It was
for
weird.
sure, for sure. Like
that's
I don't
cool.
have brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? And so I was an only child raised by a white mom in an all black neighborhood. And saying how much she wants to go into her story about her family life, but we
Mhm,
both had tumultuously family homes, and so
mhm,
we really bonded. And more than anything, we're friends and just kicked it a lot. And
mhm.
um, and that created just such a deep love and bond between us.
Beautiful. That's amazing. That's great. And so,
I would like
it's,
to. I want to enter. I'm sorry. When Stefan, this is very big for me, but when I met Stefan, he didn't tell me his mom was white. Not that I cared, but
hmm.
I walk into his house as this white woman, and do you remember introducing her as the maid?
Yeah, for sure.
And
I
I'm
did
like, you have a maid?
because
And
I
she's
was
like,
so
Stefan.
embarrassed.
Hmm.
Like you understand like how deep racism and segregation are in Chicago, right? Black people and white people don't interact. Black people understandably have a lot of anger and hurt and trauma around their experiences with white people. That
hmm
is for a lot of folks turned into a lot of hatred. And so I was embarrassed and ashamed of the fact that my mom was white. You know what I mean?
hmm. Yeah.
And so I really didn't want to. I didn't really want to share about that. And I've dealt with for many years a lot of self hatred, and a lot of that is rooted and grounded in the fact that I hated the person who gave me birth, and I
Hmm.
hated her not because she was like a horrible human, simply because of the shame that she produced because she was a white woman. And so when she showed up at my school or around my friends, I was like, you know, get away. And yeah, that was
Mhm.
that was my
But what's
trigger word.
crazy is I thought it was cool.
Hmm.
It was the opposite effect. So he was embarrassed, but I'm like, oh my God. She was so
Mm.
nice. It was just different,
You thought it was
the
cool that
interact.
she was white.
I thought it was cool she was white, you
Yeah.
know? hmm
Nice.
Yep. So
Uh, and then how did she respond when you said, "This is the maid"?
she said, oh, Stefan, she's like, I'm his mom. Like,
Okay.
like she just laughed it off. She was used
Okay.
to him at that
Okay.
point. And I
Yeah.
thought she was so sweet because my mom probably would have smacked the shit out of me.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Take that
You
off.
can. No, you
Okay.
can.
Sorry.
This is an
And we're
adult
real on
show.
here.
Okay. There's
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
hmm
don't know. Maybe there are children watching somewhere, but they're not supposed to. Although maybe it's good for them to hear this too. Who knows?
hmm
Amazing. Okay, so great. So it sounds like you guys had a really beautiful first love experience with each other, that really like took you through a lot of things. And I know, I mean, Stefan, knowing you, I would say pretty well by now as far as like your story is concerned, like you definitely had some trials and tribulations and really kind of like escaped that gang life that you spoke of, and like getting shot or being put in, being incarcerated to be the man that you are now. Um, so I think that's really great that that this was sort of a shelter. This relationship was really like a shelter for you. And so then I just wonder kind of what happened next.
Yeah. Well, I went through some shit in Chicago, where it made it that I needed to flee from Chicago. I had to get out of Chicago. And I remember I had to leave, and my dad lived in Oakland and my grandma lived in Oakland. And so I went and lived with them for a while, and Zan came with me. And now thinking back on it, I'm like, man, she was really like the only thing that I had in my life that was like stable, and but then there was a lot of insecurity around that. And I remember an incident when we were in California where she told me something that it was something real stupid. Like she had been with somebody before we were together or something like that. It had nothing to do with our relationship. But I was so insecure at that moment and so scared of losing her that I reacted to that information violently. And and to my knowledge, that was the first time, I could be wrong about that I had acted in a physically
It's the
violent
second.
way to it.
It's the
Sex. See,
second.
that's the thing about when you cause harm to someone. Like your memory of those things is not the same as someone who's impacted by it.
Hmm.
And so I really have to take a very humble posture. Um, yeah, with the fact that I've been of someone who's caused harm, and it's like something that you don't think about, but when you're the person who's impacted, it's something that's circling around in your mind. And Zan, you can speak to it more than what I can.
hmm I remember. So one, I remember the time. So my mom called your mom, and she told my mom told your mom you were in a gang, and then she needs to she said get your son out of this neighborhood.
Hmm.
Do you remember that? And
I
so your
do,
mom
yeah.
calls me, and she said, "Is my son a Blackstone Ranger?" And I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but I know he's a stone."
Hmm.
And so all I know is next thing I know, we're on a flight to Cali. I'm thinking it's a vacation, not knowing what's happening, right?
Hmm.
And I guess I don't know if Stefan would have went without me or not, but whatever it is, my parents let me go. We stayed with his dad, and it was crazy because we stayed with his dad for like a week, and then we stayed with his grandmother, and it was two different like extremes where his dad lives in his one bedroom in Oakland, and his grandma lives in his $1 million house, maybe worth more than a million in Marin County.
Oh
And
wow.
so,
This is
yeah,
mom's. Was this mom's mom?
this mom's
Right, yeah,
mom.
mom's
Ah,
mom.
This the
gotcha.
mom's
Yeah.
Okay.
mom. So
Uh
I'm
huh.
like a black girl from the South Side. I mean, I've traveled, but not to see that those different extremes. Um, And it was, and I remember going, do you remember going to Calistoga, to wine country? And we were like
Yeah.
swimming in pool. We're not even like of drinking age yet, but we're at the wine country. We swimming in pools with mineral water, and I had these experiences that and it was just Stefan would take me to dinner. His grandma had this '98, and it wasn't '98 that we went, whatever it was, but she had this Acura, it was brand new, and Stefan, his mother, he had a credit card at a very young age, so we would go like to the most expensive restaurants all the time, like it was nothing, and
Hmm.
it was just weird for me. But I mean, it got to the point that it wasn't weird because I had been with him at some, for years, and it was like that was my life at that point. But I realized we had some very grand experiences at very young ages because I don't even think we were probably 16, 17 when we
Yeah, for
went to
sure.
Cali. Yeah.
Hmm.
But we come back home and his mom had a whole house. He never went back to the South Side. So she had a
Okay.
house in a whole nother place. And that's why she sent us away so she could buy a house
Oh, interesting. Okay.
to protect her son.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I
okay.
left Chicago, didn't go back to that neighborhood really for
Nope.
years.
Hmm.
And every time I would have so much anxiety around it. And I moved out to a suburb of Chicago, and my life really revolved at that time. All I was doing was like smoking weed, getting drunk, hanging out with Zan, and I had a couple friends from Chicago that would come out to visit me pretty much every weekend, and that was kind of my life for the next
Hmm.
year or two. And yeah, again, like my whole world revolved around this relationship that I had with Zan.
Hmm. And so then the incident that you mentioned, where you had told him about some previous encounter or somebody that you were with, was that in when you were in Oakland or was that in Chicago?
Marin County.
Oh, that was in
We
Marin
were in,
County.
we was at his grandma's house.
Okay, great. And so then that's when there was violence. But then after that,
Hmm.
you guys moved back to Chicago together. Or,
No. I'm still staying in Chicago. He lives in Wheaton, Illinois. So
okay, okay.
About an
that's a
hour, 45
suburb,
minutes to an hour away.
depending on traffic. So he would pick me
Yeah.
up every like weekend, like from school, and I would stay with him the whole weekend. I had my own room in his house. You remember that, Seth? I
Hmm.
had my own room in his house. He had a room, I had a room, and then we had like a smoking room.
Huh.
Right? It
Wow.
was like black lights, Bob Marley posters. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
This was the late 90s, you know what I
Uh-huh.
mean?
I remember.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And then what led to you seeking restorative justice? You guys stayed together for a few years after that, or
We did because that wasn't the only incident, you know what I mean? That was
uh,
like, I say that that's like the beginning of like really, really, where I think our relationship turned really,
okay.
really negative. Um, but it was continued on, after that. Um, but I feel like, around that time when I left Chicago, went to California, and then when we came back to Wheaton, I feel like my behavior towards Zan became more and more violent and controlling and manipulative.
Hmm. And then how long did that continue? So there was basically you're saying in Marin there was like sort of a cycle of violence that began with you,
Mhm.
and then that just sort of kind of took over the dynamics of the relationship because Zan probably because you I would imagine you didn't stand up for yourself or put an end to it at the time because you didn't know what to do. I imagine there was a lot of like
Yeah, I never been through anything like
confusion.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah. I never been through anything like that with a partner.
right.
So I didn't really know how to respond. I did know he loved me very much. I loved him as well. Um, it was a very kind of codependent relationship.
Sure.
And it's like, and I knew that he needed me. I felt like I was that black woman that he wanted to love. Like he wanted a black mother, maybe, and I was like a black woman. It was kind of like, but I was too young. I didn't understand it. But I just know that he was my friend. He wasn't just my boyfriend. We were friends. We literally hung out like friends. It
Hmm.
wasn't just. It was deeper than that. So I didn't want to leave my friend. It took me. I remember, like, if you ask Stefan, he thinks that I left abruptly. We talk about this now, but I have been leaving him for 2 years. I just
Okay.
never said anything. So a woman, they don't leave abruptly. Like we like, okay, I'm gonna give them another chance. And then we just try to prepare ourselves because we don't want to go back. And it took 2 years and I finally left and never came back. Well,
Wow.
until we became friends 2 decades later,
That was
over
the
2 decades later.
that was the restorative justice part, or
Yep.
that's when
Yeah.
you started talking to her
Mm-hmm.
again. So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you want to mention this or not, but I'm just, like I'm tempted to ask,
Mm-hmm.
was there then a straw that kind of broke this camel's back for you, or just you were just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's it, dude, I'm out.
Well, okay, so I don't really know why we broke up. I did know I did break up with him before the straw. The straw, as far because in my mind, when I broke up with him, we were still going to be friends. I just didn't want to
Hmm.
be with him. He just wasn't my boyfriend anymore. And then I remember going away to Europe. I went to Germany. I was an exchange student, and the only reason I even took German in school was because him and his mom spoke it fluently. And so,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Huh.
Well, my
yeah, and
mom
so.
Sprachen
does.
Sie
I
Yeah,
Deutsch?
yeah,
don't
yeah. What?
anymore.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Ja,
Right?
ja.
Yeah. And so nine more. But for me, it's crazy. I wish I would have took Spanish because nobody I know speak German. I mean, the
Yeah.
people that I do know speak German speak many different languages. They speak English. So I would, but anyway, because of my boyfriend, I took German. And then I was chosen to go for 3 weeks. I went to like Frankfurt, Munich, Hamburg, Berlin, right? I had this experience. So even though Steph and I was broken up, when I came back, I couldn't wait to tell him and his mom about my trip. I couldn't wait to like share pictures and stuff. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. So when I go over there to his house one weekend, at the time I have a boyfriend. So I'm telling, I have a boyfriend and I'm telling my boyfriend, I'm like, I'm about to go over my friend Stefan's house. He's like, I don't know if that's a good idea.
Hmm.
And I'm like, you're not going to tell me what to do. That's my friend. And I go over Stefan's house for the weekend to tell him about my trip. And I thought his mom was to be there, but his mom ended up leaving and we were there alone. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back to the point that I'm like, oh, we're not friends anymore. So that was the incident. But I don't even know why we broke up before that though. But I just know it had been a long time coming.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because I was an asshole. That's
And
why.
I guess I was getting stronger and I'm like, I'm not dealing with this no more. I've done
Mm,
too much. I mean, it doesn't mean, you and my sister had a fight. Remember that? And maybe
yeah.
that was it. I think that was the straw. Him and my sister's I have a sister that's 3 months older than me, but my mother raised her. So my daddy
Okay.
had two children, but my mother raised her, and we were very close. So some days I would go out. Some weekends she would come with me, and because she loved me so much, if she see me being treated a certain way, she didn't stand for it. And
Hmm.
one day, her and Stephan they brawled, and I felt like I was in the middle.
Hmm.
And I think that was it for me. Like, okay, you put your hands on my sister. It's one thing you do it to me, but then my sister, and it was just like, I think that was it. And I'm like, I can't do it anymore. Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was it.
Okay. So, and then this other incident where you went over to share about your, experience in Germany, then something obviously got more violent.
Something happened.
Something
Mm-hmm.
happened. Okay.
Something
Yeah.
happened. So
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, do we talk about that or I don't know how that works.
It's really up to the two of you, whatever it is that,
It's really up to you, Zan. Whatever you
Mhm.
feel comfortable with.
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, and so yes, I don't mind because I think that that's the whole point of everything. So yeah, I remember teasing him on the phone and I was saying like, I have a new boyfriend. And he was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I love him very much. It was very serious. The guy was very nice to me. It was a totally different relationship than I was used to. And then he was just like, oh, like I don't mind, I don't care. And I lied and I said, yeah. I was like, because I was telling Stephan like we're friends, and he was like, I know, but I wanted him to know. And I lied and said like I have the guy's name tattooed across my stomach. That's what I told him. I was
Uh-huh.
17.
Wow.
And I was like, and then Stephan was like, no, you don't. I'm like, yes, I do. And he was like, if you do, I would never touch you again. I'm like, that's the point. And then, so we kind of laughed it off, and then I went over to his house, and we had a good night that night. The next morning, I slept in his mom's room, and then he had came into the room when I was getting out the shower, and he pulled the towel to see I didn't have the name across my stomach. And then I took the towel back, and then he was just like, "Oh, you didn't have it." And I'm like, "I was just playing." And then like that's when some stuff happened, and then an assault happened, and it was like it's like I remember it, but I kind of like don't know the details of it because I kind of blacked out. Blacked out. I'm pretty sure he blacked out, but he can speak to that. But after that happened, I remember I guess he was so like angry at himself, or he was just angry. Period, and he left.
Hmm.
And after he left, I mean, before he left, he put me outside, and so in the backyard. And so I'm in the backyard and he left, but because I used to live there, like on the weekends, I know how to get back in. And I got back in. I remember I got to the house phone. It was a cordless phone at the time, and I went into the bathroom. And I called my dad, and my dad was a fireman. My dad didn't know I was there. My mother knew. My daddy didn't know. He worked 24 hours. And so I called my daddy, and I'm crying. My daddy said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I'm like, "Daddy, I'm at Stefan's house." He's like, "What are you doing there?" I'm like, "Mama, let me come." And then I'm like, "Daddy, could you come and get me?" And he said, "Hang up, call the police." And he didn't never ask, at the time. He just could
He
hear
just
my
knew you were
voice.
upset.
He
Uh-huh.
knew I was upset. So I hung up. I called the police, and this white cop came to the door. And I got my things, and I went with the cop. And he tells me, and this is the moment. This white man says, "I've been trying to get this kid for the longest time, but his mother keeps screaming racism. Like, like you can't, don't mess with my black son." And she was a woman of means and education, and they couldn't touch him.
Hmm.
And so the man, he actually pleaded with me to press
Wow.
charges. He said,
Wow.
he was like, "Could you please press charges?" And he wasn't doing it because he cared about me. You could tell he didn't care about me as this young black woman has been assaulted.
Yeah.
He was trying to get Stefan. And that was the moment that I knew that I didn't. I told myself, like, I'm not going to do that because I just felt like I still felt protective over him, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I know, like, I didn't want him to go under the jail because of that. I just wanted him to get help. I can tell that he needed help. Like, he was dealing with some stuff within himself. It had nothing to do with me. And I just prefer, and I don't know how I knew that at 17, but I did. I didn't know at the time, I didn't know I was making the right choice. I just
Hmm.
chose not to um, do anything. And so now I'm in Wheaton at the police station, an hour and a half or hour, depending on traffic, away from my family. And I called my boyfriend at the time, and I'm at the and I'm crying. And he leaves work. He worked at the post office. He came to get me. He never he never really said "I told you so" or anything like that. I was very quiet, in the car. He took me home, and he didn't know I was assaulted until he went to touch me. And I'm like, I did like that. And he
Mm-hmm.
was like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And then I went to go take a bath. And I remember the bath water being so hot, like I was trying to burn my skin off.
Hmm.
And he was at my parents' house, and he came into the bathroom to check on me. And he seen that was, and then that's when he kind of asked, like, what happened. And then I had to tell him because he was my partner, and I wouldn't let him touch me at the time.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Hmm.
and I didn't know if I was pregnant, not pregnant. I didn't know what was going on. So, yep. And
Wow.
that was my end of the story.
Wow. That's really unfortunate. I'm
Hmm.
really sad that that happened.
Hmm.
And Stefan, do you want to maybe pick up here and talk about like your side of the experience there and kind of what happened next?
I mean, I think that what I did really didn't recognize until years later is like the impact of my actions on her, which were, obviously totally unacceptable, and wrong and fucking deplorable in so many ways. And there's really, really no excuse for it. But I really didn't. It's like I really didn't understand the impact that it had and the
Mm.
reverberations that it had for years until like 2 decades later. And I think that's one of the things that I feel like a lot of the most shame about. You know what I mean? It's like there's my best friend. I hurt them in a way that she definitely certainly did not deserve or didn't ask for in any type of way. And I harmed her, and I really didn't ever take real responsibility for it.
Hmm.
And I imagine, well, what would her have calling the police and me going to jail and me being locked up, like would that have been the most appropriate thing to do? Like would that have been what I needed at that moment in time?
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully it wasn't something that this was like a serial thing where I went on and then harmed a bunch of other partners after that. um, but I just imagine like my life could have taken a completely different trajectory had she had you know decided that she wanted to go through what that police officer wanted her to do.
Yeah.
And
And I would like
so
to interject too, because remember, Stefan, like I think that he went at the time, he didn't realize what happened to me because he was so hurt by me leaving him and me telling him no. So imagine this: I'm with a partner, and I was not the type of girlfriend like we're together. We've been together since we were what, children,
Mm-hmm.
and so he wasn't used to me being the type of person to say no. But
Right.
now that I'm not with him in that way, that's the first time he ever heard me say no in a sexual manner,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when he heard that and he wasn't used to that, I felt like even when I left him and I just cold turkey was like, okay, no, after this, I couldn't even bear to see him. I felt like, and you can speak to this, Stefan, too, that he felt that I abandoned him versus focused on what he did to me.
yeah, I mean it was all I mean I was just all caught up in my own self, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. And there was such like a narcissistic personality um, that I was steeped in at that time, where it's all about me, you know what I mean, and all about the fact that you left me and you said no to me, and how could you do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like type of toxic mentality is what made me felt entitled, um, that I could disregard your boundaries and do what I wanted to do. And well, I mean, but this is what I feel like, just sitting and hearing this conversation, you know what I mean, and hearing this, I'm just like, it just it reminds me of the work that I continue to need to do, you know what I mean, to be able to, like, I never want to be that type of person again. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to raise my son to be that type of person. I don't want to the brothers that I'm in connection with, I don't want to be that type of person. But I
Yeah.
also want people who have caused harm and harm in this type of way to be able to say, like, you got to be able to take ownership over that shit and take responsibility over it, and you got to make it right as possible. I don't think that always needs to equate someone being punished and being registered as a sex offender, you know what I mean, and spending decades in prison and having their whole lives ruined. But I
Mm-hmm.
do think that you have to make it right. And I think that's what restorative justice offers, is the opportunity for the person who's been harmed to really say, what do you need to be made whole?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that the criminal legal system never gives to you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You don't get those types of questions asked.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I just want to acknowledge you both for having this conversation. I mean, this is not an easy conversation to have. And I mean, I I've never I've never like heard of this kind of a story before, witnessed this kind of a story. I feel like, Stefan, you're really exposing yourself here, and
Mm-hmm.
saying what you did, and Zan, same. You're saying what actually happened, and I just want to honor the fact that you're both willing to share, and the reason that you're willing to share is to present a new model for people, because um, there's certainly a lot of what we talk about on this program is radical responsibility and really becoming fully responsible for your own life, and
Mm,
and overcoming your own demons and that kind of thing. And obviously, like, that's very much what this is about. Stefan, your ability to be able to speak truth about what happened and actually confront her and talk to Zan, and Zan, your compassion for him, even in the moment that you decided not to send him to prison because you could clearly see that, the cop was just out to get him, and that wasn't even remotely about justice, but rather putting another black kid in jail.
Hmm.
Um, you know, so I just really want to honor both of you and acknowledge your vulnerability here. Thank you for
Hmm.
sharing with us about all of this. It's really moving.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Steph, I like what happened, man? What triggered you 2 decades later? Here we are, and all of a sudden you're like, something you thought about it, or was it that you were in
Hmm.
getting into restorative justice work yourself, or like what was the trigger that had you realize, hey, I gotta call my friend back and make this right?
Yeah. I just want to just give some love to Zan. I mean, it really, like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if she didn't have the strength and courage, not just to forgive me, because this wasn't about, but it's like, also thank you for always seeing the potential in me. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
seeing the value and work in me. And it harms me that I did not do the same for you. And I think throughout these years that we've been reconnected, you know, um, just my honor and respect for you has just gone through the roof as a human, as a parent, as a partner, as a friend. Um, like, I just really, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
But for me, it was we like would stay in touch. It wasn't like we didn't talk at all. Like
Okay.
Text
I
me
might
every
send her
birthday.
text
Every
or every
birthday.
birthday, but we really didn't talk of any substance. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Although I was like still like really, really, like, I was so devastated after our breakup. You know what I mean? I ended up moving to Oakland, and it's a whole nother path story. I ended up, getting my life straight, and went to college, went to law school, um, and I became a prosecutor. Um, and I actually prosecuted cases of domestic violence and sexual assault. And when I left the prosecutor's office, I was working for an organization that trained prosecutors throughout the country. And the executive director of the organization that I was working for, it came to light that he had been sexually assaulting women,
Wow.
and he was kind of a C-list celebrity. He got his first money to start this organization from John Legend, and became kind of had a TED talk and like blew up. But anyway, he got Me Too'd, and he deserved to be. And
Yeah.
there was this article that was written about him called "The Wolf and the Whisperer Network," and it was around Thanksgiving, and like Zane and I would just text, around holidays and stuff. And I texted her Happy Thanksgiving, and she had texted me back like, hey, how are you doing? And I sent her the link to the article. And I was like, oh man, this is what's going on with me. And um and again, like I had, it wasn't like I had been thinking or I had changed my life as a result of the harm that I caused to Zan. It wasn't something that was at the forefront of my mind.
Mm.
Um, and I sent her this article, and I'll kind of let you take it from there, Zan. Like, what happened when you received that article?
Yeah, I was shopping at like Sam's Club, and so he had texted me, "How you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, how you doing? How's your mom?" Because I knew she was, ill.
Hmm.
And then he he basically was just like, "This is what's going on with me," and he sends this article. So now I read the article, and I remember being in my car, and I'm like, I stopped in my tracks, and I'm like, I didn't know, why did he send me this article? It brought up so many emotions
Hmm.
because it was about assault.
Yeah.
And I'm like, now the person that assaulted me is sending me an article about like, woe is me because his life is whatever,
Hmm.
and about, this happened to him again, right? Not
Right.
realizing any about the person, this happened to me.
Hmm.
So I thought to myself, couple things. Either he forgot what he did, because I was very cordial. Like, like, even though I didn't really have intimate talks or close talks with him, I would respond to his text. That's the realtor in me. That's just who I am as customer service, you know? But um, I thought that he either forgot what happened to me or he was checking my temperature
Hmm.
to see
Mm.
if I forgot or to see what I would say. So when I read the article, I remember I was talking to my boyfriend and I was just like, at the time I was talking to him and I'm like, why did you send me this? Like, he was just like, I don't know. And I'm like, that's insane. I'm like, so I remember texting Stefan, can you talk? And then he told me his availability because he got a schedule with him, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so we finally got a couple of days later and we talked. And he was like, what's going on? How you doing? I'm like, I was doing good. So you sent me this article. He was like, what's going on? You know, why? And I said, do you realize that the same thing that this man did to these women, you did that to me? And he stopped in his tracks.
Mm.
And then he would have to go to like tell you how he felt at that moment.
By the way, what year is this? Like, when are we talking about?
This is 2019,
It's
2020,
Okay.
probably is it like
2020.
1920? Is it
No, it was
2021?
2020 because it was after
It
it
was
was 20
May or
During
2020.
2021. It probably
during
wasn't even.
Yeah,
COVID.
yeah, like
Yeah, it was like
late
COVID.
2020. Yeah, it was
Mm-hmm.
definitely
Yeah,
COVID
it's
time.
probably
Yeah.
2021, late 2020.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
so then, Stefan, so how did you respond?
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine like it was like 2 decades. I have done a ton of work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked now in a place of, I was going around the country preaching about the efficacy of restorative justice. I had done a lot of healing circles with men, so doing a lot of men's work. I had prosecuted people for sexual assault, mostly for people who were sexually assaulting children. But I prosecuted a lot of people who committed domestic violence. And um, when she sent that to me, I was like, yeah, I mean, I was floored. I was like, fuck. Yes, you
Yeah.
were right. You know what I mean? Like, you are absolutely fucking right. And how horrible of me to like text this and not, you know what I mean? Not really have any understanding of like the impact that it would cause. Like, and also recognizing, oh shit, I've never really taken really any real responsibility for it. I mean, I think I said general, hey, I'm sorry. I know I did some bad things. You know what I mean? But it wasn't specific to this. And it was never in a place where um, I was in any position to really center her needs. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? And like, what do you really need, to be able to heal from this? And I didn't understand the impact that my actions had.
So you'd
I
almost
mean, you
like
can
blacked it
understand.
out, kind of like you just weren't even
I
Mhm.
thinking
mean,
about it anymore. Stuff.
no, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
most definitely, most
Mm-hmm.
definitely. Then it was really like, okay, like what can we do? You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
what can we do?
He asked me,
Um,
"What do I want from him? Like, what can I?" He
mhm,
apologized, and we were. That was the first time we really talked about it in detail. Versus like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I did bad stuff to you." You know, it was like we.
Mm-hmm.
I told him the impact that it had on me and how it prevented me from having certain relationships or trusting people wholeheartedly. It's why I have like so many children. Like, it was like a lot of things. Like, I wanted to have kids that loved me, and it was, I wanted. It was. I struggled financially for many years, and he was doing very well financially, and it was kind of hard to see. And I'm not a jealous person. I've never experienced jealousy. I wasn't jealous. I just didn't understand. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why does this person who did this bad things get to have all this stuff, and then I'm struggling?
Mm-hmm.
So we had those kind of candid conversations. So, and then he ended up suggesting we actually had a therapy session together. And that was when we talked about it. We had like a mediator.
Okay.
So we talked about it in detail. And that was the start of something.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And so then was it also like, did you realize, Stefan, in this process where you're like, okay, it's time for me to apply these principles that I've been preaching about and teaching people to use? And so were you going by like
for
kind of
sure.
a step-by-step process that is restorative justice?
Uh, Not necessarily, because that's really a blanket, broad term. But I think that the heart of restorative justice is the people who are most impacted by a particular incident. They get to decide what is needed in order to heal or to move beyond that incident, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the criminal legal system, the survivor of an incident is more a pawn in the state's case, and you may or may not get what you need in order to really heal. And really, the only thing that you're given is like more or less incarceration or probation or criminal convictions. Like that's the answer. And a lot of times, survivors
Yeah,
want
that
things that are
works
really
great.
different. Yeah, right. But just
Yeah.
from my like what we know, and there's a ton of research out there that's been done about what survivors really want. Like they want to be able to ask questions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck were you doing? Why were you thinking this? They
Have you
Mm-hmm.
want to
done it
ensure.
before? Have you done it
Have you
again?
done
Because
it
I want to
before?
make
Have you
sure.
done it out? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they want to answer those questions. They want to know that that you'll never do that type of harm again. That you'll be the kind of person that's going to do the work, right? To never be that type of, to never cause that type of harm again. And
Mm-hmm.
so those are all answers that you don't get out of the legal system. The legal system's never be like, you better grow beyond the person you was when you robbed
Hmm.
that person with that gun. Like
Right.
that's not what we get. And so and it's also was a stark contrast to the person in the article that was written about, who was really just like denying stuff and running away and hiding and
Mm-hmm.
not willing to take responsibility and only thinking about themselves. And I really wanted to do something different. And at the time, like I was thinking about running for office. Like it would have been easy for me just to like, I don't know what the fuck you talking about. I ain't never did no shit about this. Like plausible deniability. I don't know. Stop texting
Mm-hmm.
me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like this crazy person. I don't know who they are. But I
Mm-hmm.
was like, nah, I don't want to show up like that. I want to
Mm-hmm.
really, really take ownership and responsibility for it. And so I think, she was willing or desired that we have a mediator that met with us separately, met with me to really be able to like, look, like this is what she's saying that she needs. Like, are you really ready to take ownership? Are you really ready to take responsibility? Like, do you feel genuine remorse for what you did? Like, are you willing to be able to meet the demands that she has in order to be able to feel like she can move forward with this? And also met with you too. Wasn't in that meeting, but I think she met with you also separately,
Hmm.
and y'all
Hmm.
had a conversation to kind of prepare you for this time that you're going to be together.
Hmm.
And I think we had maybe one or a couple sessions with her,
You had probably
and
one,
one session with her where we
and then
really
we
was
had
like,
one
hey,
together.
okay, yeah. So we had our own separate times, and then we came together and had a conversation. Um, where really it was a lot more listening, you know what I mean, to her experience, which I had never done before,
Mm-hmm.
um, and to really feel the pain that she caused, like really sit in her shoes, like the opposite of what I did when I was a kid, which was this really narcissistic, self-focused thing. That's like, I want to understand.
Sorry, you said the
Um,
pain that she caused. You mean the
You
pain that
meant.
she
oh, the
experienced?
pain that she experienced. I'm sorry about that pain that she
Yeah,
experienced. Yeah,
no problem.
please edit that out.
I'll fix it, or I'll just leave it like this because we corrected it, so it's good.
Cool.
Um, okay, great. And so, whose idea was it to get the mediator?
Was it yours, Stefan?
It was probably mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was our joint
And so
joint
then,
desire.
so that's fascinating. So you were like, "Hey, we got to fix this, man. Let's get a mediator, talk to somebody, and work this out." And then I'm asking these questions because I think for people who, are in this situation on some level that are listening, they're going to want to know, well, what were the things that you went over? Like,
Hmm.
Zan, I'm just wondering, you got together with the mediator first, and then she said, what is it that you're looking for? Like, can you just kind of tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about?
Well, she asked me what happened from our point of view, right?
Mm-hmm.
What actually happened, and I told her everything that I told you guys. And then the next thing she asked was, "What do you want? Like, what would you want from him? What would make you what questions you need asked, or like what is it that makes you feel like closer to healing?" And I told her I had a couple things that I thought about. One thing was I wanted to know if he did it again. I wanted to, I wanted him to apologize to my family because that, that really hurt my parents, especially my dad as a father. And I wanted to speak to his wife. I wanted to meet his wife and children, and speak to her. And I wanted him to tell her. It was important that he, told her what he did, And so those are things that I really wanted from him. And then he actually pretty much did everything I asked him to do.
Yeah.
I'm just still trying to meet with your pops, though.
Well, my daddy don't want to talk to
He
you.
don't want to meet with me.
He is not interested, so you might not be able to do that.
But her mom and I do talk though. Or she sends me text every once in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the next process was that you guys met. So obviously the mediator then came to you, Stefan, and said, "Hey, here's the list of things that she wants. She really wants you to communicate with her family. She wants to talk to your wife. She wants her to know about it. She wants to know if you've done this before or since then."
Yeah.
And then you were like, "Yeah, man, I'm all in. Let's go." Was that kind of how it went?
I don't remember if she said that to me versus it was really at that time I was like, whatever it takes. What you know what I mean? Whatever it really, whatever it takes. You know what I mean? Like I really wanted to be able to make it right. And so I don't remember what she said to me or who had the conversation first, but I was like really open to whatever it was that she really needed and really wanted to, to make those things happen.
So then the two of you met and you talked about it and you were very open and vulnerable with her about what it was that you're willing to offer. And then was there I'm just curious, like this whole process, then he's probably went about doing the things that you had asked him to do, right, Zan?
Because what happened was he got an opportunity, and Stephan, you can speak more to that, where you got an opportunity to speak to some troubled youth, right, in LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he wanted to tell these kids like that I was you at one point, right? And look at me now. And he offered to bring me along with him. So he's in Seattle, I'm in Chicago. So he presents this idea like, do you want to go on a trip to LA? This is what's happening, you don't, and you don't have to worry about anything. I'll pay for it. But is this something you're interested in? And it was like COVID. I couldn't wait to get out the house. And, like after that, so I was just like, free trip. And so,
Disneyland. We're going to Disneyland.
We're going, right? And so I was open to it. And plus, in his childhood, he has only a couple friends he can count on his hand that knows both sides of him, right? That knows the gangbanger side and also the attorney side. And I'm one of those few people, especially I think I'm the only girl. And so he offered for me to come. I talked to my boyfriend at the time. He said it was okay. And I actually brought my daughter. So now that was a scary part. Now imagine this. I'm bringing my daughter at the time, maybe 17.
Oh, wow.
Looks like I did.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? This beautiful young woman that looks like I did. So I had to have a talk with my children. I have 2 daughters. And at different stages in their life, based on their maturity, I did discuss my assault with them. Okay. Because when they started dating and when they started having relationships, and especially if I seen it was going down the wrong path, I would say, look, this is what happened to me. It's okay for you to be in love, but some love can be unhealthy. And if this young man, he loves you, but he's putting you on a pedestal, and that can be very dangerous. And just look out. And if anything ever happened to you, tell mommy, I believe you. I'll be there for you. I won't question anything. Like, these are conversations I had to have with my children after this happened to me 2 decades prior. So now I go on this trip and I want to bring my daughter because she's always wanted to go to LA. But I'm like, okay, you remember the guy we talked about? Yeah, we about to be on this trip. and if, I even had to have like a safe word, like if she felt some type of way to just, I mean, not to say I'm sorry, Stephan, but it was
It's
not,
all
it was just
good.
like, these are
It's all good.
the conversations I had to have with my child, who, again, she's a beautiful young lady,
Yeah.
but what's crazy about my children, my girls, they are way stronger than I was at that age. Because I poured a lot into them. My parents poured a lot into them. And so, she was down for, like, okay, let's go. We went, and then that was like one of our beginning of our healing journeys as well, because I was watching how he was behaving towards me. He hadn't seen me in decades. And, I'm watching, and then I felt very empowered too, because I used to think of Stefan as a monster, but now I'm strong now. I felt like I'm the monster now. Like I'm strong. I'm invincible. Nobody can touch me. I felt very empowered on this trip, and it was a good trip. It was what, 7 days, and
Yeah.
it
We
was
went to
great.
the Grand Canyon.
We
Went to
went to the
LA.
Grand
We
Canyon.
went
I swear we
Palm
went to like
Springs.
Venice Beach, Santa Monica, Palm Springs.
Yeah, we
Nice.
Yeah,
did a
we
lot.
went.
Yeah, we did
We
a
did a
lot.
lot. Yeah.
SoCal
Hmm.
tour.
But
I like it.
Hmm.
yeah, it was yeah, I was going down there to speak to some young dudes who lived in from Seattle, who had all been involved in gang violence, and they had been flown down to LA. One group in LA, one group in Arizona, two rival factions of gangs, because they were working with this organization that was doing some mediation between the two.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't even know how it came about. Like, hey, you want to go on this trip? Because we've been thinking about. Because after that mediation, I mean, we really started talking a lot, and we just like, oh fuck, man, we really like it. Just rekindled our friendship. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And she had a partner. I'm married. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything romantic. It was just like, wow, we're like childhood best friends. And
Yeah.
so much of like our friendship had been renewed in such a really really beautiful way. You know, and I was like, I don't know, we've been talking about how can we really be able to share our experience, you know what I mean? And this was an opportunity that came about for us to be able to do that. And then the opportunity to meet her daughter, who frankly looks just like me. She's not my kid,
That's
but she
crazy. She do. She
Huh.
she
do.
really looks.
Funny.
She's
Hmm.
got curly hair. Let's say, I mean, she looks like she could be our kid for sure.
Hmm.
And she's just a lovely human being. And then also flew her boyfriend out there too, so it was like the four of us on this
Okay.
like a family road trip, and like both of our partners were like blessing it, and we were
Kudos
able
to
to meet with
them.
these. Yeah,
Let's say
seriously.
kudos to
Nice.
our partners
For
for
Yeah.
letting
sure,
this
it was
happen.
right. And I hope that, and I'll let her say, but like it was my goal to make sure that she felt really respected and honored and cared for. And it was like at every step of that trip, trying to demonstrate, man, I'm no longer the type of person who I was 20 years ago. Towards her daughter, I want to be super respectful and honoring. Towards her boyfriend, even though we got into it a little bit, because he's a hothead. But I really love that
Oh,
kid.
you talking? No, no,
But
not my boyfriend. My daughter's
no, I'm talking
boyfriend.
about
Yeah, right.
Mario, yeah, her
Gotcha.
boyfriend. Sorry.
Yeah. It was
But
Zan, your
yeah, so
daughter, her boyfriend, and you,
exactly, her
Stefan, on the
boyfriend.
trip.
That's
Got it.
right.
Yes.
The daughter's
Hmm.
boyfriend,
Yeah.
right? He was
Got it.
a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid. Who
Yeah.
reminded me somewhat of me when I was a kid. So I
He
was like, dude,
was.
don't be doing the shit that I was doing. And he's like, get the fuck up off my face, dude. um, but yeah, I mean, I think that was like August of 2021 when we went on that trip, and I just feel like we've been really good friends ever since then. And then my wife and Zan they spoke on the phone several different times and have developed their own relationship. And then I don't know, it was last summer sometime.
Yeah, when you
Um,
came to visit us.
yeah, I came and they got to actually meet in person, because it's really important for my family to recognize like a lot of what we have built is as a result of Zan's decision not to send me to prison. You know what I
Right.
mean? And not to want to, like, I would not have been a dad. I would not have been with you. I would not have had these things, but for the love that she showed to me
Yeah.
back then. And like, I really, really wanted to honor her. And I know she loves to travel and she loves to eat. So it's like, I feel
I
like that
do.
was That was
I
something that she
do.
wanted. Yeah.
So tell me about the speaking in front of the kids. You went to go talk to the troubled youth, and was it the two of you? And did you guys tell your story?
We didn't tell. This is like the first time,
We've ever
maybe the
told
second
this
time
story.
that we've ever told
Okay,
this like really publicly. You know what I mean? And I think at that
I
time, you
gotcha.
correct me if I'm wrong, Zan, but I don't know if you were really ready to talk about this at that time.
No,
You know?
no, it was more
Yeah.
about you, and I was just
Right.
there to support and yeah, I was not ready for that. It wasn't the
Yeah.
group for that either. It
Yeah,
wasn't
Right.
that wasn't
Yeah.
the scene for that.
Mm,
Mm-mm.
yeah.
got it. So you saw an opportunity, Stefan, for you to kind of like reconcile and be together and really spend some time and repair your friendship. It sounds
For
like
sure.
after having
And
gone through this whole process. Um,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. Was there a moment, Zan, where you said to him something along the lines of like, I feel that you have done everything that I've asked you to do to my satisfaction?
Um, I still told him if he gets rich, he has to take care of me for the rest of his life. That was about it. But other than that, yes, I'm good. Like,
Okay.
and so it was. I definitely healed. I remember every time I used to talk about this, I would cry. I couldn't
Hmm.
talk about it. Now I
Yeah.
could talk about it and I cry. I don't wear that anymore.
Mm.
Um, I just feel so empowered and I want to help as many people. That's why I'm telling my story publicly because I want to help as many people as I can and we can. And I even suggested we write a book or start a podcast. And I told him we should call it Gray Matters because a lot of these issues that he had was because he was black and white.
Mm.
So, and I wanted a lot of issues in the world are black and white, right?
Hmm.
It's not black or white, it's black and white. It's gray, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if we can co-write a book, I've never heard a situation where a person and the person who assaulted her co-wrote a book together about healing. So I'm like, you know,
I like
but
it. I'll read that
yeah,
book
but I'm,
and I'll have you on the
you will,
podcast
yeah.
again, to
Oh,
talk
awesome.
about
You're the
your
first one
book.
that did it. You're
Yeah.
the first one that ever did it. So yeah. So no, I'm very excited to help a lot of people because I've always had a very different mindset when it came to a lot of things. Ever since I was a child, I never really go by what everybody tell me to do. I do what feels right in my heart and in my soul. So
Hmm.
I I just I just felt like I felt good. I felt empowered just by
Yeah.
him listening to what I went through and him saying, "What can I do for you?" Versus a lot of people make you feel crazy. I didn't do that. You
Mm,
said yes. You wanted it. He never did
Right.
that.
mm,
And
Wow.
I was able to forgive. I mean, when forgiveness is asked, I can forgive. If
Hmm.
it's not, I can't. So this is hard to, I mean, not to be, I'm not protecting him or anything, but like to be able to admit that you did something to somebody and listen to them and say,
mm.
"What can I do for you?" I applaud that
Yeah.
and it
Me
helped.
too. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
way forward. I feel like
Yeah.
very strongly. I'm curious for each of you, and Stefan, I would actually like to talk a little bit about like the legal system, how restorative justice actually works in the world in terms of the courts and such, because I know
Mhm,
you do some of that work and you're
mhm,
familiar with it. But before we get into that, um, what's your vision here? Like, how do you see people, people in similar circumstances that have had something like this go on? Like, how do you kind of see this unfolding for them? Like, how would you? Let's say somebody's listening to this podcast, right? And they're like, "Oh my god, man, I had this very similar thing happen, and I really want to, you know, handle it." Like, how would you recommend people start this process?
Well, I would say you have to have two willing participants. Both parties have to agree
Hmm.
for it to ever work. Possibly a mediator. I think that's very important because everybody sees things through their own lens, right? And you need somebody on the outside to kind of like somebody who's not a part of any one of your family or anything like that, but to kind of mediate the situation. And then whoever the person is that did the harm, say, what do you need from me? Because that need is different for every person.
Yeah.
So that would be a start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Steph?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with if you're a person who's caused harm, it first starts with like you doing your own work on your own
Mm-hmm.
self. You know what I mean? To really look at what was going on with you at the time. What are the underlying root causes of that led you to that behavior? Are you ready to take ownership and responsibility? Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to sit in the fire? Are you willing to like are you the type of person that will no longer do that again? Are you willing to become that person if you're not? Like you have to ask these questions, and there can't be any real like you're not doing this to like because I need to get something. You know what I mean? Like I need to get something. It's really about centering the needs of the person that you harmed.
Yeah.
And I think when you're really ready to do that, then I think you're ready to even begin to have that conversation. And sometimes in some places people can't, you know what I mean? Like if you've harmed someone, there might be a no contact order that prevents you from being able to talk to that person. They may not want to have anything to do with you, and you need to respect that. Doesn't mean that you still can't continue to do your own work around this. You know what I mean? Like there's people who can, you can sit in circle with what's called a surrogate person. You know what I mean? So it's someone who may have experienced similar harm, but it may not be the person you harm, but it's someone who've experienced something similar, and you can have a healing process that's centered around that. Because I would say for me, like this was also just extremely healing for me. Like one of
Yeah.
the things that I tell Zan oftentimes is that I struggled for many years with this sense of self hatred.
Mm.
And it was really like our reconciliation that was part of the beginning of my healing journey. Like in my mind, it felt like there was a curse on my life.
Hmm.
Like Zanka is a very spiritual person. She's a daughter of God. She comes from a lineage where people, in my opinion, really are spiritual people. You know what I mean? And I think by causing such a violation to such a beautiful human being creates a deficit in your life, that needs to be dealt with, and I really, really, like my whole life really opened up so much in my ability to love myself and to care for myself really began to come online really in 2021 after we began to reconcile. And it's just been a beautiful gift to me that I never could have imagined that that's what I would be able to receive.
Hmm.
And that is so often what I hear from people who've caused harm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, like going, like really true accountability should result in a real personal transformation for yourself. And and I feel like I was really able to experience that.
Yeah. Definitely. That's really beautiful. Just a reflection for you. I mean, I just think it's so your capacity to forgive yourself and your willingness to step into what you did and take ownership of it and know that you can be a better man, know that you can be a bigger man than you were, and really heal that part of yourself that was so confused at that time, didn't know what he was doing, and just accept that. That's such a uh, it's such a beautiful journey, and I really appreciate you sharing that with us because I feel like so many people get caught up in, you know, they did something unforgivable and so they'll never forgive themselves and so they continue to look at drugs and alcohol as a way forward or just coping, not dealing with it, not looking at their shadow, not dealing with the things that are haunting them, and you really have done that and continue to do that work. I mean, that's how we know each other,
Yeah.
actually.
I mean, I
uh,
just I just thank Zan for that. She gave me the opportunity to be able to do that. You know what I mean? Like I would not have been able to do that had she not had the capacity um, or the grace. And it's really like a lot of my love for myself, it comes from being in relationship with her because she has this deep love for herself no matter what the fuck happens. Like she
yeah,
went through this whole experience, when she was in the hospital. I don't know if you want to talk about that, Zan.
Oh, I don't
Uh,
know.
we're going to talk
but
about that
that,
when you get off.
yeah, but that really was like, I was like, she really demonstrated such a tremendous amount of self-love, and she
Mm-hmm.
really radiates it, and so I think it's just like restoring our connection. I think the other thing we did not mention, I talk about, is that we had a child together, um, when I was 15 and she was 14 years old,
No,
or
I was
15
15
and
too. We're not.
15 and
We were,
16,
yeah, 15 and 16.
15 and 16,
Hmm.
and she had an abortion, but it was a baby with a heartbeat, and you know what I mean. It was, and I honestly feel like that also is something that really has connected us, in a really, really powerful way. And I always feel like, you know, we both believe would have been a boy.
Hmm.
That my son's also like, don't you fuck with my mama, man. So, um, yeah,
And it's funny, we
I
never talked about that. We thought, I didn't tell him I thought it was a boy. He
Hmm.
didn't tell me he
mm,
thought it was a boy. It wasn't until this journey that we talked,
Hmm.
and he told me, and I'm like, I think so too. And then he said he had a dream, and
I've
and
had a lot of
yeah.
experience, really, and even recently in the last couple of months, I had an experience where I was outside, no psychedelics, you know what I mean, but I was in
Hmm.
a meditative place, and I looked up and there was like this single, I don't know if it was a star or a planet, but it was like super bright, and it was that I felt it was my son that was speaking to me,
Hmm.
through this star. And it was something that I needed to hear at this moment in time. It was really about the work that I do, and my purpose, and just living for something that's much, much greater than myself. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's just so much synergy and connection and really, really beautiful energy that has come about as a result of our reconciliation. I would say hopefully, Zan, for the both of us, and not
Hmm.
just me.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's been, like I said, it's been very healing for me because I just feel very strong. I don't feel weak. I don't feel in lack. I feel very abundant. I just feel like I can do anything. I mean, I've always felt like that, but I didn't. I blocked out my pain and my hurt, and it wasn't until I started to talk about it that I cried that I realized, okay, I haven't dealt with this. I haven't dealt with this. But now, like I said, I can talk about it, and I don't have that emotion. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm not embarrassed by it. Um, I don't feel, I used to feel like I did something wrong. I used to feel like it was my
Mm,
fault that he did that to me because I had said yes so many times, or because I
mm,
was so submissive in a relationship. And it actually turned me into the opposite in a relationship. I became to the point. I mean, I was the type of girlfriend I wasn't submissive at all,
Mm-hmm.
And here it is, I end up having a great partner, and I was just not having. I'm like, you're not telling me what to do, and and this journey is having me look at myself and what can I do better as a person, as a mother, as a woman, I've never been married. And
Mm-hmm.
then for a long time, I never wanted to get married. And now I'm at the point now that I'm open to it,
Yeah.
and a lot of this journey has because I healed, and I'm like, oh, I can be a good wife to someone. So
Beautiful.
yeah. Hmm.
That's really great. Hey, Stefan, how hard is your hard stop at
It is. I
4:45?
got to go pick my
Is it
kid
super
up,
hard?
man. I wish I could. It's super
Well,
hard, man.
let's wrap up this portion, and then Zan, if you don't mind, I'm going to keep you on and have you tell us a little
Okay.
bit about your healing journey because I want to know about that
Of
shit.
course.
Little
Of
postscript.
course.
Yeah, I really want to acknowledge both of you, for first of all having the courage to bring this discussion out into the open so people can listen. Some people are going to judge this situation, hopefully that's not the thing that carries the day here. It's for sure it's not for me. I think really you're demonstrating, you know, the power to heal, both of you, the power to forgive, the power to take responsibility, the power to see beyond, the victim. Like this is an actual situation where you were actually victimized by an actual assault, like a real thing, not just in your mind. And, you were both able to really heal from it. I really want to just acknowledge you, Zan, for your courage to talk to him about it, for your courage to save his life. Frankly, back in the day, from going to jail, God only knows what would have happened. For sure, you wouldn't be on this show, and I probably wouldn't know you,
Mhm.
Stefan. Um, and and just the courage to like really say, hey, look, this is what I need. And Stefan, for you to really like be the man that's willing to like reconcile and look at his own mistakes and really like own who he was and own who he is now. Forgive yourself for who you were, and really love yourself. And I just really want to honor both of you for modeling this journey of reconciliation, for like what is a really challenging thing. Sexual assault's not it's not a it's a very major thing. Taking something sacred and using it in a way that doesn't work, and then being able to come to terms with all of that and really like look at all the ramifications. It's really beautiful. So thank you for sharing your journey with us.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you
Jeff.
for having us, Jeff. It's been a beautiful time.
Yeah, excellent. So we're gonna have a little postscript with Zan, because
Let's
Zan's
do it.
had this incredible journey. Stefan, I just want to say thanks so much. Much
All
love.
right, peace.
Great. Okay, Zan. So you tell, when we started the when we got on, you and I got on first, and then Stefan joined us later while we were talking before the show. You were telling me about your healing journey, which is really
Hmm.
amazing. So if you could just tell us a little bit about like what happened there. You were diagnosed with
Okay.
MS. You were
Yep.
uh-huh.
How about this? It was December of 2022, the beginning of December, and I didn't notice, but my eyes got blurry. I
Okay.
didn't realize that I was going blind in my left eye rapidly. It happened over the course of a couple of days. I just thought it was allergies at first, and I thought it was because I had LASIK 20 years ago, well, in 2005. And so I'm like, oh, and they told me, like, if you have LASIK and when you turn 40, you might need reading glasses. And I'm like, oh, that's all it is. So it wasn't until I went to the eye doctor that no, actually it was before I went to the eye doctor. The night before I went to the eye doctor, something covered my right eye. I think I had like because I had a satin scarf on,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the scarf must have went over to my right eye, and I thought that the lights went out. I was at my parents' house, big like watching their animals. So they had a dog and a cat, and they were out of the country for 3 weeks. So when I thought the lights went out, I'm like, oh my God, my daddy's not here. I gotta, the fuse went out or something. And so when I moved the scarf, the lights came back on. And that was the moment I
Wow.
realized that my left eye was completely blind.
Wow.
Yeah, completely blind. I didn't know what it was or why it was happening. So I didn't freak out. I was just like kind of worried, like, damn, what happened with that? And
Uh-huh.
so one of my brokers in my company called me, and she's a nurse. So
Uh-huh.
she called me about something. It was like 11 o'clock at night about a question of like a property. And I
Yeah.
said, I'm so sorry, I can't talk because I'm the type of broker when if you work for my company, I'm going to answer the phone. I
Uh-huh.
pride myself on answering the phone like all the time. I'm very responsive as a person. That's who I am.
Sure.
And so I told her what was happening to me, and she's like, "Go to the hospital. You could be having a stroke." That's what
Okay.
the nurse said. So I'm like, a stroke?
Yeah.
And I called my sister and I told her, I was like, sis, can you take me to the hospital? I don't feel comfortable driving. And she's like, sure. And I went to Northwestern after 12 hours in the waiting room. 20 minutes later, this young doctor says, I think you have MS, just as casual.
Wow.
And
That's not
I'm
casual.
like, it was very casual. And
Man.
I'm a hypochondriac. So
Oh
I go
boy.
to the doctor often. And I'm like, no, I've been to the doctor several times. I would have known by now.
Yeah.
And then he was like, we're going to run some more tests. More tests turned into 2 weeks later.
Okay.
But at the time, again, my family's out of the country. And
Yeah.
so I didn't want to call them and tell them because I'm like, they're not doctors. They can't help me. I don't know what ruined their trip.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what I'm going to tell them. So I just wanted to wait and see. But my sister told them, and my family came back quick. I don't know how they did it.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if they stopped the cruise ship or they docked at a certain place were first to get off. I don't know, but they came. It was my mother, my father, and my daughter. They were out of the country for like I said, 3 weeks. My family
Yeah.
loves to travel. We love to travel, and
Uh-huh.
so I'm at the hospital and they running all these tests. Oh, so many tests, so many tests, and I'm feeling fine. Other than the fact that I'm blind.
Yeah.
in one eye, only one. I'm not blind. I'm just, in the left eye. And yeah, so 2 weeks. I remember the doctors telling me like, "Oh, you have an autoimmune disease, but we don't know which one. But you need to see some neurologists when you get out of here. We're going to refer you, and they'll tell you more about it. But this is what's happening, and you're going to pretty much have it for the rest of your life." And I'm like, "Well, what do I do?" And they were just like, "Well, we had this medication. They give me something. It's like an autoimmune suppressant.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of chemotherapy because I have to get it injections in the hospital every 6 months, like for 6 hours,
Oh God.
and getting these toxins like pumped into my body, which is weird. And they're like, "Oh, and now you can be, I've never had COVID, knock on wood." They're like, "Now you exposed to all this stuff, so you might need some more vaccinations." And that's the last thing I want is more. Like, I've
No.
already had all the vaccinations. I don't even know, so I'm just like, "Oh my God." And then I'm like, "Well, what can I do?" And they was just like, "Well, they didn't really mention diet and exercise." They was like, "Well, I'm like, "Well, if I
Go
eat
medical
better,
system.
okay."
Jesus God.
And
Really?
then
I mean, come on.
no, they
When I say Jesus,
no,
I'm
they
not
did.
taking your name in vain, kid.
Yeah,
All right? Help us,
yeah.
please, with this bullshit.
Yeah, so I left the hospital, and then I'm like, because I always was focused on wealth, like building my company.
Uh-huh.
I was known as the 24-hour realtor. You can call me at 3 a.m. and I'm picking up like I was never asleep.
I'm not going to do
Um,
that.
no, well,
I'm
now I
never going to
don't.
do
You
that,
can't
Zan.
get, like,
Okay?
no one can do that now. So I've learned that stress was the cause of it, lack of sleep
Mm-hmm.
was the cause of it, poor diet because you're so busy, was the cause of it.
Yeah.
Um, all these things, not exercising because
Mm-hmm.
I'm always in front of a computer or I'll go show houses, but it's not like I'm doing cardio.
Right.
So
There's walking
I'm
up
like,
some stairs sometimes.
just
That's
watch
about
some
it.
before
Mm-hmm.
again. Yeah, exactly. And so I took my health in my own hands, and I took off work for 7, 8 months, and I just went hard on healing, finding ways to eat better, finding ways to de-stress, finding ways to like, I go on walks every single day. I even went and got two dogs because they make me walk even when I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
Finding ways to sleep. It took me 4 months to learn how to sleep.
Hmm.
Taking cold showers every day, learning breathing exercises, like all these things, meditating daily for hours and hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just, and all I know is in 5 months of doing that, I lost 50 pounds. I got my eyesight back. My skin was looking good. When I used to spend thousands on face wash and lotions and stuff.
Hmm.
And all this time, it was all about diet and exercises and learning, like I said, not to stress. And I was so focused on wealth, and now my focus is health, because health is wealth.
Indeed.
So yeah, so that's my focus now, and my company is doing. I'm finally. I feel like I'm starting all over again, but I've been very blessed to be able to take off 8 months. But now it's like I'm back working, but now I'm trying to figure out healthier ways to be busy, right?
Yeah.
Without
Right.
forgetting
Without
about me,
compromising
which
your
is
health and yourself.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to just kind of dial in a little bit to exactly
Mm-hmm.
what you're talking about. You mentioned you do
Yeah.
2 hours of meditation every day. Is it just
Well, I did. Now I do. I have a 19-minute meditation that I do, but that was like in the beginning. It was 2 hours a day. It
and
was
was
2 hours
it
daily.
what kind of meditation was it? Was it just
It was a lot of different ones. It depends on what I'm trying to manifest or whatever. But Joe Dispenza was very critical.
okay?
Have you heard of him?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Oh,
That guy's
okay.
a
Joe
marvel.
Dispenza. Yeah, I love Joe.
So you did a
I
lot
want
of
to go to
his
one of those.
guided meditations?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I bought
Okay.
his a course.
Uh-huh.
I bought a course of his. So he had like several meditations in the course. I watched the whole course. I bought all his books. I read those. So Joe Dispenza, Vishen Lishiani with Mind Valley
Okay.
is very
Yeah.
was very big in my life. So that's the 19-minute 6 phase meditation that I do. So I'm able to get everything all in 19 minutes because I'm busier now. I don't
It's
have
the
all day.
19-minute what meditation? What's it called?
It's a six phase meditation.
19-minute
It's called,
6-phase
no,
meditation.
it's not called the 19-minute 6 phase. It's just called 6 phase meditation. That happens
6-phase
to be
meditation.
19. minutes.
I'm going to go check it
on
out.
Mind Valley. You
Okay.
should. It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, so those are things, and I guess I love to learn. Like that's why I'm good at real estate. I do a lot of certifications. I spend a lot of time on my computer, and I love to read or listen to audibles if I have to drive all the time. But yeah, so those are the things that help me. And after 4 to 5 months, I had my vision restored again.
So that's really interesting. So you mentioned that before we started, that was part of the process of healing from the MS for you, was that you were learning a lot. You actively were
Learning
learning. And because you were learning a lot, then you're creating more neural connectivity
neuro. Hmm.
in your brain, which then helps
Hmm.
to fend off the MS that you were getting.
Well, I feel like that just helps as far as any healing when it comes to
Uh-huh.
healing,
Yeah.
right? I mean, learning. Like I said, sleep is the most important thing.
Hmm.
If anybody do anything that I say do, sleep. Learn how
Yeah.
to sleep correctly, right?
Yeah.
You need that REM sleep. You need that deep sleep. I
Mouth
mean,
tape.
and the mouth tape. I do. I tape
I
my
do
mouth
it too.
shut.
I do.
My ex thought I
It's
was crazy.
hilarious.
It is hilarious. I do that. I put on my headphones. I put on my eye things, and I just zone out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's great. So Joe Dispenza, the 6 phase meditation from Mind Valley,
Hmm.
were key for you. And then you mentioned
Hmm.
you do cold showers and you do cold plunges. You do the Wim Hof
Just the
breathing.
cold showers. No, just the Wim Hof breathing. Yes, on an empty stomach in the morning. But the not the cold plunges yet, but the cold showers every day for like a year and a half, maybe. I take so I start off with a regular shower, but the last like minute, 2 minutes are cold. That's it.
Yeah.
The coldest that it can be. It teaches your body how to be in a stressful environment, but in a controlled environment, I guess. And you
Right.
learn to, I think you learn to deal with stress differently
Hmm.
once you dealt with. I do notice things that would get me upset didn't get me as upset anymore. Like when
Hmm.
you're driving and it's like I'm like nothing really bothers me. I mean, I get some things do really bother me. Like right now, my dog is having allergies, and that's like freaking me out. But
Hmm.
that's because it's my baby, and
Yeah.
he's not complaining. It's a dog, but like not many things. Like I don't get upset. I don't let people take me to a level where I'm pissed off. Right? If
Yeah.
somebody's like driving and cut me off, I'm like, oh, maybe they're rushing to their mom who's sick, or I create these narratives that I don't really get mad at people.
Hmm.
Yeah. So those are the things some of the things that I've done. And one of the things that was key to me too is I got a book called How I Beat Autoimmune by Palmer Capola,
Okay.
and she also had a series like a course. It's called Beat Autoimmune Academy,
Hmm.
and then at the time it was $700, and I had this one credit card. I only had $500 on it because I wasn't working. And I didn't know when I was going to work again. And I had emailed Palmer, her team, or her, I don't know who I was emailing. And I had this story like, this is what happened to me. I'm just getting out the hospital. I'm a mother of three, this and that. And I was just like, can you help me? And she sends me a coupon code for $200 off. And it
Oh,
was the
nice.
exact $500 that I needed to buy
Huh.
her Be Autoimmune Academy. And that's when I learned how to sleep and do certain things and diet and food triggers and toxins, like your like how everything has toxins in it, things like that. So
Yeah.
Palmer and I became friends. It's
Oh,
funny
cool.
because yeah, I had wrote a review like a year later on her company and told her everything that happened to me, and
Hmm.
she asked to meet me via Zoom. She's in Cali,
Hmm.
and then we met via Zoom, and we've talked about 2 or 3 times via Zoom, but then we texted back and forth and stuff. So she's been, yeah. So we became friends because of that. And I told her I'm writing a book. My book is going to be called The Day I Lost My Sight and Gained My Vision.
Hmm.
Because you know how when you lose sight, like one sense, but another one is heightened. For me, my intuition was heightened when I
Hmm.
lost my sight. When I lost my sight,
Oh,
so
wow. So there was a
mhm,
good side effect.
it was a great side effect, and it's still with me now. So, and my meditations, every day that I do my meditations, I ground myself and I put myself in like this protective bubble, this energy bubble, to the point that nothing can touch me. Like I really believe in it.
Hmm.
And it's all about belief. Like they said,
Yeah.
if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right.
Henry
I
Ford.
think right,
Yep.
and I think that I'm untouchable, and I really
Hmm.
believe that. Like my family thought I was crazy, but until they like see, and they like, oh, like she's onto something. And now my family's kind of like, following suit, my children, and so yeah.
Yeah, my wife was telling me about this book, Key to Yourself, by Venice Bloodworth.
Okay. Yeah.
And this woman, she was blind and she couldn't see, and she was like, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to be able to see. And she believed it so strong. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to have perfect vision. And she did. She woke up the next day with perfect vision because she believed it. So, and that book is, I guess, all about that. I have not read it yet, but I'm going to get into it. That's really beautiful. And diet and exercise. What's your main diet? What was the main diet keys for you?
Cutting out like inflammatory foods.
Like carbs,
like milk, carbs, and learning what's healthy and not healthy, and learning when to eat fruit first thing in the morning. Fasting was very important. Cutting out sugary drinks because I love me some Starbucks. So I just started doing just water, just drinking straight water 100% a day. Like even right now, I got my water. Just keep water with me all the time. Drink water in the morning when you first get up. Things like that. Like yeah, it was in walking. Like just walk 30 minutes a day. I don't care if it's in front of your. Like I walk in front of my TV sometimes when I'm watching an episode of something because I was so busy all day I couldn't watch TV, and I just sit there for 30 minutes at least, at the very least, yeah, and masterclass too. I love watching. I love the masterclass series.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, that's been really good. It's great stuff. So
super
Small
cool.
Habits by James Clear. Chris Jenner has a good one. And yes, I love masterclass. So those are the things that I did to kind of keep me going and learning.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that part of your physical healing journey. That's really, really valuable, really beautiful. And I do have some friends that have MS and who have actually somewhat successfully battled it, I guess you could say. And they do all kinds of work for it. But it's really fascinating to hear your journey with that as well, especially that you got your sight back. Amazing. So you got your sight back, you got your childhood best friend back, living your best life.
Yay me.
Yeah, really. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zan. I really appreciate you sharing all that. This is a question that I didn't ask Stefan, but I'm going to ask you. That I ask all my podcast guests, which is, for you, Zan, what is sacred and what is insane?
Okay, sacred is my spirituality. I don't know. What is insane? That's a hard question for me. Right? Because I don't even think on that level. Yeah, it's hard for me to. What is insane? I guess being poor.
Fair.
I don't know.
It's a good answer.
Right. I live in abundance. Okay, even if I am poor, I'm abundant.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Awesome. All right, that's great. So, and then we'll put your email address.
Please do.
In the thing, and if you're in Chicago and you're looking to buy or sell real estate, you should definitely go to it's Forward Realty, right?
Forward, yeah, because my last name is Ward, so Forward. Forward Realty. And if you want to become a broker, because I have my own company, so you can work with me too.
Cool. That's great. Go with Zan. Yeah. She'll sell you a house. All right, she's honest. I'm telling you what.
I am.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks so much for coming on the show. If you want to support this program, go to patreon.com/Lunacy podcast. We'll see you next week. Much love, everybody, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.